Okay, we've got last call for raffle tickets. See Dan over here? Anybody need a raffle ticket? Or two? Or three? Okay? No? Nope.
Okay,
Yes?
1 for
3 for 5, 6 for 10. That's what we like. As long as it's not one of the ones I'm going to win. All right, we'll start in about 4 minutes. Is that right?
Yes.
But yeah, it should be pretty cool.
Give me one more.
You got 4 seconds. Oh, we have an audience. Do we have like that, remember that off-air bullseye thing when television went off the air? They had that me. Yeah, the test pattern. Do we have a test pattern up until we start?
No, we're just putting
Are we ready? Oh, freeze? Remember that game, freeze? Is this even on? No.
Okay.
There, I made it work.
I was trying to unfreeze that from
Oh.
over there, and it doesn't.
All right.
Wishful thinking.
Well, we're starting. And welcome everyone to our live audience here at the Moolah Temple, and welcome to everyone who is out in internet land. I'm Vicki Berry, and I'm president of the Guild this year. And I just want to make a quick reminder that we do record our meetings, so you can take a look at them at a later date or anytime you wish. So tonight we will have a few things, including a short meeting, then it's our show and tell. Somewhere in there, our raffle and a few other announcements, and then we'll get to our program, which I think you're all going to be very excited to listen to Don Turner, who's one of our members, and on finishing. So, a few things. We are recording. Okay, new members. I know we have at least one new member here tonight. Chris, right?
Yep.
Stand up and just say your name.
Chris Tynan.
Chris Tynan, who is nearing retirement, I think, if I understand correctly, and wants to get serious about woodworking.
I'm one lottery ticket away.
One lottery ticket away from retiring. Aren't we all? All right, well, welcome. Any other new members or guests here tonight? Yes, sir. One more time? JP? All right, and JP, what's your level of woodworking? A beginner, another beginner, and that's great because not only in this room, but in the Guild in total, we have all levels of experience, and I would like to say I'm down there at the beginning with you, so you're not alone. All right, anyone else want to? Oh. Well, welcome, Chuck. And you've been a member a while, is that correct? And just kind of coming back? Oh, well, even better. And I know you've got a great show and tell, so we're excited to hear about that. And Steve?
Steve Rachel. I just moved in the area back in June, and my son-in-law Adam here, so he invited me to the Guild.
Well, welcome and thank you. Just like to make sawdust. Yes, we all do. But who cleans it up? Okay, any other new members or guests that want to? Okay, well, let's get going. All right, the Christmas toy program. Well, you probably see the announcements almost weekly now. Friday afternoons, there's a core group and some new folks that come out and help us work on Christmas toys. In fact, Santa Bill brought a couple that he has done. Santa Bill. So what we're doing is, these are, no offense Santa Bill, but these are some of the more simple things that we are doing. But the difference is we are finishing them more and painting them and making them more of a finished toy. So I think we're working on scooters tomorrow. If anybody wants to come and help assemble those, that would be wonderful. But I think right now we're sitting at just over 1,000 toys. Some of them bigger, some of them smaller. So it's a great variety. And if you recall, we will be donating them primarily to two places. One of them is going to Toys for Tots, which was a recipient of us last year. And then LifeWise St. Louis, which is also a recipient of ours for a lot of the desks that we've been making. And then a monthly toys. So it's two great organizations. And if anybody wants to come out tomorrow afternoon, noon to 4, as I said, we have all levels of skill that are needed, and we'll always use 2 extra hands. All right, raffle drawing. Who's got the doodad? Okay. Oh, I have a $50, a $20 gift card from Rockler, and then I have I have a really cool little brush. It's technically an umpire brush, but it is, I think, great for dusting off tools and things like that. So those are our three things. Who drew a number?
We drew a number. The number is 4932.
4932 was the first number drawn.
Going up.
Who got it? Oh. Oh, okay. Do you want the $20, the $50 gift card, or the umpire brush? You're welcome. All right, we need another number.
And the number?
Sorry, that's what happens when you make me leave this thing. Platform.
A lot of them, they got stick. Hold together.
And then, oh, I lost my, oh.
And we have 4923.
4923. Joe. Joe. John.
Good.
Oh, no, I'm not leaving this thing. You got to come get it. I got yelled at when I.
We have one more for a brush.
Okay, the brush or the gift card?
All right. Okay.
Okay.
I'll kind of roll.
All right, one more.
4871.
4871. Oh, you
Yeah,
always
close to me.
win. Well, it's more than me. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Okay, let's see, a few announcements. Yes, Al?
Simple statement, we're going to improve the library, and I've set out a few books over there that are for sale.
Okay.
Basically project books that, 1987, that you have to open up a book and look and see if you want that project.
Oh,
Feel free to come on over. I'm selling them basically a buck.
oh, okay. Well, our librarian Al has just mentioned that we are thinning out our library, and he has some on the table that he's selling for $1, mostly project books. So if you're interested and even aren't here tonight, you can still contact Al. All right? Thank you, Al. All right. Recognize this? Well, there was a group. I don't know all the people involved, but there was some dedicated people this summer when it had to have been over 100 degrees out that got the shed built. So first off, thank you to all of you that finally got our shed built. And I, in my smart aleck way, say, Wayne, you get it built and I'll get it painted. So finally, this Monday, this group, including Hal Donovan and Alan Brown, I think, who left early, we showed up when it was still 45 degrees, and I was worried that it was going to be too cold. But ta-da! In about 3.5 hours, we got that sucker painted, and I think it looks pretty darn good. So, thank you. Thank you to all who participated in both the building and the painting of the shed. So, Bill Shukata, you want to do some program class announcements? Are you mic'd?
Hang on, Bill. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I will say after Bill has his announcements, we'll be doing show and tell. So if you have a show and tell, we want everybody to kind of line up at once, and we'll mic you. Yeah, line up by the media table, and we'll get you mic'd, and then we'll ask that you do your show and tell. All right, Bill.
I'm working on the classes and presentations for 2022. So if anybody has a class that they would like to see offered, or one that you would be interested in teaching, send me an email. You don't have to remember my name, vicepresident@slwg.org will get it to me. On a positive note, we have done a project in the past with the Rockwood schools where guild members have made kits for toys that we take into this class, and this teacher has these children assemble the kits. And that's been on hold because of COVID. But I got a call from her last week, and we are on again for December 14, 15, 16, and 17. I'm looking for volunteers who would like to help us supervise the kids. It's really pretty easy mostly. They're pretty bright kids and they get them put together. But there are times when they have some questions or when some of the parts don't fit or whatever, and we give them a hand with that. So frankly, I've participated in a bunch of these classes as well as making some of the kits, and it's a lot of fun. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10:30 till like 1 o'clock. And there are typically a dozen kids in the class. So if you're interested, send me an email. I need some volunteers. I'm going to participate, but I need some help. I'm looking to have a class where we make cutting boards or a chessboard or something like that. And I'm looking for someone who has done that before. So if you've done that, again, send me an email to the Vice President, or give me a call. I can't remember. I know we've had some at Show and Tell, but I can't remember who's done it. And I think that would be a good class for some of our new members. So I need some help with that. Lastly, we have well, it's not lastly, second to lastly, we have a troop of Girl Scouts coming to the Guild on November 20. And we're going to put together some totes. I think there's 6 girls in the class. If you would like to participate, help supervise that, let me know. Same thing, send me an email. Particularly, I don't see very many women here tonight, but given that it's Girl Scouts, it would be good to have some women participate in this. I know Vicky's going to show up. And then lastly, what's coming up is a couple classes that are full. There's a safety class on November 4 that still has a number of openings. So if you haven't had the safety class and want to take it, now, good time to jump in, and there's a fee for that. But if you go on the website, you'll find it.
And it is a prerequisite for using the shop, the equipment in the shop.
It is a prerequisite for using the shop. So, Wayne Watson is putting on a class November 7th on splined miter joints. That class still has some openings. And Wayne's putting on another class in December, early December, on biscuit joinery. And that class still has an opening. So send me your emails and look forward to seeing you in an upcoming class. Thank you.
Thank you.
November meeting presentation.
That's separate.
But November, we will have Mary May, who's going to talk to us about wood carving. And then just a reminder that we do not have a meeting in December. So the next time after November will be January when we get together. Okay, was there anything else I was supposed to announce or say? All right, well, we'll get to, oh, show and tell. Oop, back up, show and tell. Okay, so everyone that has a show and tell, if you would get over there and get mic'd. I don't have the list. But I'll be first up. I am, if you recall, I signed my president letter wannabe woodworker, because that's what I am, I'm a wannabe. But I am a pretty good knitter. So this is my show and tell. I finished this a couple of weeks ago. And finally, we got a cool, crisp night, and I thought I would wear it and give you my show and tell. So that's when I'm not in the shop, which hasn't been much lately. I'm sitting on the couch and knitting. Yes, sir?
Would you put that in a cedar closet so it'll smell like wood, please?
I can do that. Would you like to build me a cedar closet? Yes. Okay, here's the list. Dan Reeves, you've got some leather work I think you want to show us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
One second. How can you, Mike?
Is it on?
Nope.
It was.
What?
Turn it on.
I just want to apologize to everyone real quick. For this month only, we are not going to have the show and tell cam up on the projector. Sorry. So show and tell presenters, hold it both in front of the camera and then also hold it up so everyone can see it in the audience. Next month, we should be back to normal.
Where's the camera?
Right here.
Next to the light.
Looking this way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little thing next to the light.
I'm relatively new to woodworking, but like most areas, I suspect that woodworkers are willing to steal an idea anywhere they can find it. These brushes, I've got 3 more. These are for sale, $2 a piece. They were for sale at Johnny Mac's, $4. Apparently they changed supplier or something, so I found these at a yard sale. Anyone else, $2 a piece, payable to the toy fund.
Thank you.
I had an inquiry at the shop one day about draw knife blade protectors. Well, I do leather craft, so I did some experiments. You can come up and look at these. Have about 6 different designs. Finally narrowed it down. This is one of the designs that I like because the blade would fit in the slot. This is obviously too short for this one, but, and then the strap wraps around, snaps, and you can adjust the strap so it will accommodate any width blade. So that was one design. I kind of like that one. Then Mike Sivers said, well, what about folding handle blades? Just a plain folded leather would work for that. Again, just a folded leather. This one had some snaps built in. This one, you just put a wire tie in it to hold it or something else. So you can come up and take a look at these at your leisure. I'm going to, these are all experiments they're all functional, but I don't even have a draw knife. So if anyone is interested, I'll get it.
Okay.
Glad to sell them real cheap. Okay, since I do leather work, I also decided maybe I need an apron. So I went on the Rockler site, got the picture of their apron, printed it, scaled it up, and decided I'll make one. This was a piece of essentially scrap leather that was in something I got from an estate sale. So I've pieced it together. I have one piece here, the straps. Oh, sorry. Straps for the support. Another type of strap to go around for the waist. Pockets with covers. Reinforced with rivets. The hardest part that I found was making these little pockets. I have a leather sewing machine that will get inside a pocket like this. So you can sew it, you actually have to turn it over, and the needle and thread are going in from this side. So you have to very carefully glue this side and put locator lines on the back. So I made that one. That's for me. Had a little bit left over, so I tried to extend it twice, make it longer. Then I found some really cheap leather. Really cheap leather. So I made just a simple one with no pockets. Again, waist strap, put in 3 essentially grommets, so you can adjust it for what's most comfortable for your waist. Did a different kind of neck strap. On mine, I used all snaps like that. I decided it'd be a lot easier just to make a bunch of holes, have one hole here, and use a device called a Chicago screw or a screw post. So if I want, this one can be adjusted simply by loosening this screw and selecting a different hole in the neck strap. That one was interesting. And then Mike Sivers. I decided, since I've known him a long time, I would do one for him. So this is a much softer, thinner leather. It is done to his specifications, how long he wanted it, how wide he wanted it. If you've ever looked at leather aprons, there are several websites, and their aprons start at about $90. The real fancy ones can go as high as $300.
Jeez.
Yeah. But I can make the equivalent for maximum of $150. So that's going to be a present for Mike. And last, another surprise. The monitors, a few months ago, had a drawing. 3 people got gift certificates from the club. I decided, I've got the leather. I know how to do it. I'll make one apron for one of the remaining, or the monitors. So I'm going to do a drawing here. Would someone on that side pick a number between 4 and 9?
7.
7. Okay, a number between 1 and 10.
2.
Okay. We have 42 monitors. So you divide 3 into that, it's 14. The number rolled around, so it's the first group of 14, and your number was? 2. Brad Bernhard.
Yeah. Good for Brad. Brad's not here tonight, but I bet he'll enjoy that very thoughtful gift. Thank you very much, Dan.
Yeah, I will make a custom apron to his size specifications. Any questions?
No? All right. Oh, one question.
What's your sewing machine? Is it like a Chinese one?
So what's the sewing machine?
I actually have 3 sewing machines. The real heavy duty one is a Tipman Boss. It's a hand stitcher, but it can stitch a stack of leather 3/4 of an inch tall. Then you've probably seen these little Chinese ones, which are actually a knockoff of about an 1890 Singer. Some places they'll say $600, $550. You keep looking, $100. I paid $100 for mine. It's hand cranked, but it has that narrow nose that lets you get into pockets. And then I'm trying to do a rehab on a machine that got left out in the weather for a while in Arizona. Not sure if it's going to revive or not, but that will be electric powered, regular sewing machine type.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan? All right. Thank you, Dan.
Oh.
Dan Sukamp, your tray and bowl.
I call this one using up your scraps. I've always liked the idea of a lathe where you take a 3/4 board and glue whatever you got together, and you take them, cut them at a 45-degree angle, and you lay them back on top of each other and re-glue them. You can come up with a bowl like this with just something that's no more than 3/4 inch thick, as big as it is. So again, I don't throw anything away. So just random colors and random stripes in it.
What's the finish on it?
Usually do a spray lacquer on that. Pretty simple, dries quick. I did some cabinets for a family friend of mine for the bar a couple of years ago. I think I had show and tell on that. So I had some of this barnwood he had left over. So I decided to make a couple of trays out of it. These are basically a 1/4 inch thick. I take their boards, basically are about 1 inch thick, and I just cut them in half and then plane them down. And so I can get basically 2 pieces out of a board on it. So I thought I'd just make, again, some simple tray. Got a piece of plywood on the bottom for it. So again, that just, to me, it always looks kind of neat. See how that works. And I made a couple of knives. I always wanted to try this. I seen this something on Pinterest and took one out, a piece of walnut, a wooden knife, and then felt too small, so I made a new one, piece of walnut, piece of cherry. And it fits pretty good. There's patterns out there you can get. But I use this one for peanut butter, margarine, soft cheese. You can use them. I just oil them just with stuff you use for cutting boards, things like that. So once just clean them up and wash them. But they work just fine. Everything's going with the grain, just mild, not too much of sand to them. So, okay.
Okay, thank you. David Zeman, I think you're going to show and tell.
Send someone else up.
Okay, someone else. Chuck, you want to show us your lamp?
Good evening. I'm Chuck Schrock, and was brought by my father, and he got me involved in woodworking many decades ago. And he's mostly a turner, and I do some other things. So Frank Lloyd Wright inspired lamp. A lot of great woodworking to be found in Wright houses, not all of it terribly practical. as a desk lamp and lighting purposes, this is not itself terribly practical, but I think it looks good. Plans were basically home drawn, pictures that I could find on the web, as well as pictures that I took visiting various Wright houses. And then the lumber is simply Lowe's or Home Depot, I can't remember which, straight off the shelf, red oak. And the electrical work includes some things from Antique Lamp Supply, so that I could have period-looking electrical cord and connections, and the modern nod LED lamps, so that this thing doesn't get so hot that it potentially catches on fire. So somehow all of those Wright structures are still standing, despite the fact that they've still got hot incandescence in structures like this.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, John, you're going to be next. John was one of our painters. Hello.
This is just a walnut bowl. I didn't actually use it turning. I did the epoxy work and the inlay, the butterfly, which actually goes all the way through. But it's walnut with the Chechen butterfly. But there was a bark inclusion, and I actually sandblasted that out with walnut shell, and then did the epoxy inlay. And if you look at the butterfly, when you do an epoxy inlay, you want to leave a gap all the way around, or else it weakens the joint. So there's about a 1/16 of an inch gap all the way around.
It's beautiful.
Did you cut that butterfly with the clipping saw?
The butterfly was cut with a scroll saw, and then I used the pattern that I cut out, the negative, on a pantograph, and sink it all the way through. And then these, we went down to SWAT in September to the Southwest Area Turner Symposium in Waco, Texas, and they had a class on making these. And it's a big leaf maple burl, and then you cut a little, like a little sprout, root sprouting, and then you pour your epoxy in a tube, and made 3 of these for my granddaughters, little flower holders. And then this is just a decoration I made for my wife with, it's a slab of willow, and if you come look up closer, this actually looks like a geode, and that is actually done with bath salts.
Huh.
Yeah.
John, what's that finish?
Huh? The finish is epoxy, just a pour on epoxy, but that's the bath salts in crystal form. And if you don't like the color, if you use a metal pan, you put in alcohol ink and a little alcohol, mix it together. And if you do that, you want to make sure you have something to hold it far away, because you light it on fire until it burns off the alcohol, and you end up with the color you want. But you can also use a
from
small
experience?
Yeah, small. Yeah, I've lost the hair on my fingers. And that should do it.
All right, thank you. David, you want Brian to go next? You ready? Okay. Yep. So David Zeman is gamer the right word?
No.
Okay.
Oh. Why is that not?
Please hold for the next available technician.
Why is... There we go. Okay. So Woodworking is my...
Would you take the mask off, maybe?
Oh, sure. Woodworking is my number 3 hobby. Number 1 is cars, and number 2 is computers. So I also race with the SCCA, Sports Car Club of America. And when I'm not racing with them, I am racing online.
You mean like on a track? You race a car on a track?
I will probably get to track racing next year. This year and for the last 3 years, I've been doing autocross, which is a parking lot slalom. And that's only once a month, which is nowhere near enough. So computers being my number 2 hobby, I wanted to start racing online. And the reason I say I wouldn't call this gamery is because these are much more simulations. It's not like I'm racing to get trophies and points and upgrade cars. This is simulator. I'm racing for the purpose of practicing and getting better at driving, not just enjoyment. So this is a very shortened build process of my sim rig. Started out with a junkyard seat, and the frame was actually bent, so I decided to just go all out and buy a real race car seat. Oh, is this not gonna? That's a bummer. All right. I'll just talk from over here. The pictures are more exciting than me anyway. So the hardest part for me was getting the wheel properly aligned with the seat and the pedals. The seat is on sliders, so I could adjust that, but a lot of cars have adjusting wheels, and so without a wheel that adjusts, I needed to get it just right. So everything is all just clamped together in this, and what I was doing was unclamping it, taking it to the miter saw, chopping those vertical pieces 1/8 of an inch lower, chopping the horizontal pieces 1/2 an inch shorter, and just reclamping it all. And then I'd just sit in the seat and make vroom vroom noises until I felt it, you know, it was good. We'll skip this. This is boring. This was my idea for how the vertical pieces would actually look once it was built. The shelf in the back is where the computer sits to run it. And then, there we go. So this is, everything is still just clamped together, with the only exception being, let's see, you can probably see my mouse. These 3 2x4s right here are actually glued together. So this is what the whole thing is going to look like eventually. We've got just the wheel platform is sitting there. It's not glued or clamped or anything. And again, this was me sit in the seat, make vroom vroom noises, and make sure it's really good before I start permanently attaching everything. Again, one more final test. Everything's plugged in. I actually raced many hours with it like this before permanently attaching everything, because this was a multi-month build, and I really wanted to make sure it was going to be comfortable, because this is version 3 of the rig. So once I was confident that everything was in the right shape and the right dimensions, I took it all apart. And during that process, I actually ripped out the original casters out of these rails. So I cut little notches in there and then glued in solid pieces of some scrap cherry that I had laying around, so I could put much larger casters and screw them in instead of just using the threaded rod style. So we have it. Oh, those rails. This is a great time to talk about the rails. The rails, this is the first time I'd ever laminated plywood together. So I bought one big old 4x8 sheet of plywood, 3/4 inch thick, and then cut it into size and laminated 2 of them together. So that ends up being 8 inch tall, 1.5 inch thick plywood. And they're strong. They ain't moving. I finally permanently attached the wheel platform. That was a huge point for me. That is 3/4 inch hickory. That strength from the hickory is really needed. That is actually kind of the minimum strength that I'd consider good enough for this rig. There's absolutely 0 vertical flex, but there's actually still a bit of twist in that because of the forces on the wheel. But this was a really cool moment. I'd finally permanently attached it and felt like I was making really good progress and I was getting close. I was still a good month away from finishing it. There it is, almost all permanently attached except for the shelves. You can see the monitor and the PC shelf are still clamped, but everything else is permanently attached now. Did you guys know that routers make a lot of sawdust? This idiot over here forgot to cover up the bottom of the seat. Oops. At least the pedals were covered. That would have been a mess.
Are you going to paint this race car red?
No, but the final pictures, they're a treat. You'll like this. So this is everything permanently attached. Got the shelf neatly routed in, and let's see, one more photo. There we go. So my goal here this whole time was I had some plywood with really pretty faces, but I didn't want to spend the money on hardwood for all of the support structures. So I was going to paint the ugly 2x4s black to kind of give it a metal-ish look. I was even debating for a while using that really expensive hammered black paint that you see. I ended up skipping that. But to make the 2x4s not stand out, to make them blend in as much as possible, I actually used wood filler and a putty knife to cover up all of the crevices so it looks like one smooth black surface. So that's what you're seeing here is a bunch of wood filler covering up seams between 2x4s and imperfections in the 2x4s. And here we go, starting the actual paint process. So I've taped off the pretty plywood faces. I'll eventually stain those. A little bit more of it painted. And here we go. When I first joined this guild, now 3 years ago, it was right about this time of year, and I just finished making a desk out of a sheet of plywood, and wife and I did that with polyurethane. And then I showed up to one of these meetings and I said, oh God, please somebody tell me a finish to use that isn't polyurethane. And I was very happy. I took notes and didn't do anything with those notes after asking that question here for 3 years until I built this. I finally went back to those notes and saw that someone had suggested shellac, and yeah, that stuff's good. I like shellac. So this is done in just some dark oak stain and then 3 coats of shellac.
Which I see on your shelf.
Yes, that's the stuff. Amber tinted shellac, gorgeous. I still,
Right.
Oh fine.
You're eating into our real finishes presentation.
There we go. So that is the almost finished thing, and then we'll go ahead and skip a little bit more. Did you know I like that wheel platform? I was proud of that.
Yeah, well, it's great.
So here it is, finally up in my office, and there's the finished gig.
So I would say any newcomers, there is no limit to what you can build. And we probably have the person in the room or online that can help you with any project you can dream up.
Yep.
So pretty cool. This is really pretty cool, David.
I think so. If anyone wants to go for a ride, you're welcome. Come on over. My address is it's in the membership list. Just give me a ring. There is no back seat. My wife said I should really turn this into a bench seat so I could take a passenger. But it's got VR. That's the way I race most of the time. The VR headset's hanging there at the back and the wheel. It's good fun.
All right, we've got one more show and tell before we get to our program. Brian Ellison has made some seasonal items, it looks like.
I'll make mine real quick. Am I on? Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. I'm not going to be here next month, so I brought stuff for fall, Halloween, Christmas, just things that I've painted, carved, cut out. Everything here I have made. One of the things I really like are my Halloween pumpkins.
Yeah.
Years, 15, 20 years ago, I'd spend 2 and 3 hours carving pumpkins. I have them last a month, and I went, wow, those are great. So I had an idea of taking my scroll saw, the patterns that I used to cut out the things, stick them on wood, drew everything up, made it all, cut it all up, and then I put a piece of vellum on the back. Vellum, for some weird reason this year, you can get white. I make about 10 of these a year for my family, and in the past they've had red, yellow, orange vellum in the back, but I couldn't find it this year, so that's what I did for these, and these are my last two to give away to my family. So.
Very nice.
Oh, pick it up. There, does that look good?
All right, thank you, Brian.
and
Anything
then,
else? Oh, yeah.
Santa Claus that I had last month, here's one of them finished, painted.
And that's basswood?
Yes, it's not basswood. Actually, it starts off as a basswood egg, and then just carve it down to there.
Huh.
So, and there's some other stuff up here. Just come up here and look. I told you I'd make it quick, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. And thank you to all our show and tellers. All right, now we're ready for our program. Don Turner. So, those that know Don know that he, about 5 years ago now, retired? Yep, about 5 years ago retired. He was an electrical engineer and technology manager at Boeing. We have a lot of members who work for Boeing, so thank you for that. But he's enjoyed woodworking since high school. So not to put any numbers to it, but it's close to 5 decades, I think. We're close to the same age. So, he's had that interest, and he's, I think, done a lot of woodworking on and off during that time, but got a lot more serious when he retired and started his business, which is Turner Handcrafted Furniture. And he'll be the first to tell you that's probably his real love, but he ends up doing a lot more cabinets and kitchens and such, and we've talked him into being our teacher for the cabinet class. And I had the privilege of taking a private class with him to build a couple of vanities, and he is an excellent teacher. He is certainly very knowledgeable, and he is even more patient than you would think. So he's been great to work with, but the whole beauty of a product is the finish. It can really make or break how it's turned out, and you can cover up a lot of imperfections with the finish. So tonight we want to welcome Don, who's going to give us a primer on finishing. All right, thank you. I think so. Is that over here?
It's over here. Al's getting it.
Because, is it on now? Yeah. Am I good? Yeah. Oh, there we go. All right. So I'm just going to discuss finishes from a woodworker's point of view. I'm not a chemist. I don't know all the chemistry of it. I'll throw in a few words in there that sound chemical, but these are things that I've found through the years that have worked for me, and so it's sort of a practical ground level. This is kind of what works well with finishes. So we'll go ahead and get started. I hope this is the right way, like that. Oops, okay, that's good. So there's a seemingly endless list of options. If you first start looking at finishes years ago, I thought it just seems to go on forever. So what I'm trying to do is just kind of organize it into something that you can wrap your head around and see what finishes work for what situation. So it's to try to simplify this whole long plethora of just endless finishes that you could choose from. So I'm going to break them into groups. So talk about the different groups of finishes and then look at their strengths and weaknesses. I've really had great experience with all the finishes, but it's just a matter of deciding which finish you should use for what application. Oops, there we go. So I broke it out down into 4 main groups. There is wax, but maybe I'm a finish snob, I don't know, but I don't consider wax a finish, but if you want to call it, that might be a 5th group. But I broke it down into 4 main groups. So there's oils, shellac, lacquer, and I'm going to put polymers, which is kind of a big group, but they're, and I'll explain to you what the polymer means, at least from my point of view. So those are the 4 groups that I broke it down to. So we'll just go right into them. So first thing we'll talk about are oils. And there really are 2 main types. There's a non-hardening and a hardening. Solvent typically is a paint thinner, usually when you want to thin it to clean it or even spray it. I've never sprayed it, but you could. You do have to take precautions when using it. When you have waste and you have a waste rag, there is a spontaneous combustion hazard. I just have to throw this in because you really got to be careful of that. You either have to throw the rags in a approved fireproof container, or you can lay the rags out for drying to avoid the heat buildup. So I don't have a container for it. I'll just lay them on the concrete floor in the shop. And if they're open and they're not wadded up, they'll dry. Because remember, you're putting it on wood, which is also combustible. And you're letting it dry. So the same applies for the rag. Just don't wad it up and throw it in the corner. Lay it out flat, and once it dries, then it's run its course, and you won't get the problem with combustion. The non-hardening is usually for cutting boards. Typically, it's a linseed oil, vegetable oils. So there's non-hardening, and everyone's familiar with that, especially when you use a cutting board and you want to kind of revive it. You put the oil on there, and it brings it right back to life. It's not very durable, and you have to periodically re-oil it. But it is easy to recondition if you want to maintain it. There we go. Oops, the wrong way. Nope. I'm going to get the hang of this here. Okay. All right. So now we're moving on into the hardening type. I've read that they call them hardeners. I don't know what the chemistry is and all. But it's used on furniture and small projects. It is easy to apply. You usually use a rag to put it on, which we just discussed the safety on that. Not as durable as lacquers and polymers. It might be considered equal to a shellac maybe. It is way more durable than the non-hardening type, of course, though. So you can actually put it on furniture, and I have some pieces that I've put on furniture, and it comes out just beautifully. It lays in there real nice. It levels out real nice. So I've had some really good luck with the oils. Just a couple types. There's a boiled linseed oil, not just linseed oil. It's a boiled linseed oil. There's tongue oils. So those are some of the ones I use. I've also used some that are food safe that I put on the lathe when I made some bowls on the lathe. And those go on, they're hyper expensive, but it's a beautiful finish. And they are food safe, so you can put food in the bowl and reuse it. And it holds up pretty well. Oops, I'm going the wrong way again, aren't I? Okay, and then there's shellac. This is one of my faves. I kind of like shellac. It's derived, from what I've read, from the shell of the lac bug, and it's been used forever. It's been around for centuries. The solvent is denatured alcohol. You can just go to any of the home improvement stores, and it comes in a gallon container, and it's also called fuel for lamps for camping and so on. But anyway, the alcohol helps it to dry real fast. It's really easy to apply and work with. It's a great pre-stain sealer. I thin it down. Basically, you can say I add a little bit of shellac to my denatured alcohol because I thin it way, way down. And it's really nice for end-grain sealing. And I got a couple pieces here I want to kind of show for show and tell maybe. They have similar durability to oils. It can't stand up to all kinds of use and abuse on a kitchen table or something like that. But if it's a piece of furniture or something you're going to have for a knick-knack, it's great for that. So, and great for small projects. So it has its advantages. Okay, so I took pictures of these, and the one didn't work out as well. That's why I brought this in. But it's a really neat pre-stain sealer. You can buy pre-stain wood conditioners and so on. But I really like the shellacs, and there's a couple reasons. It is worth mentioning, I take it down to a 0.75 pound cut or less. So how do you do that? So the shellac that you go out to the home improvement stores, the little quart-sized cans, that's a 3 pound cut. So I basically take one part to 3 parts of denatured alcohol. So it's like water. And what I love about it is it just soaks right down into the wood, like soaking it in water. And the nice thing is it will raise the grain, and it will also seal it so you'll get something even. There's some woods out there that are really difficult when it comes to stain. It would be cherry, hard maple. Those are difficult. Now, oak, maybe you don't need to do it. Oak is pretty cooperative. It's pretty nice. But maples and cherries, they get all blotchy. And so this works great. There are other pre-stain sealers there, but I really like the shellac. And the thing I like about the shellac is it dries in 15 to 20 minutes because the denatured alcohol just evaporates and it gets out of the way. And it raises the grain, and you do some light sanding, and then you can apply whatever finish or whatever stain you want it and or finish on it. And everything sticks to shellac, so you can put whatever finish you want on it. And it'll when you sand it, it gets real smooth, and it's a real great way to start out on your finishing process. And you'll still need to sand between coats probably, but significantly less than if you didn't use it. And of course, it evens out the stain. It does go on a little lighter, so you will have to either put a second coat on or go to a little bit darker color stain to get the color you want. But I really like it because it just evens out the color and you don't get all that blotchiness, especially if you're doing like raised panel doors and you've got the reveal on the raised panel. So if the grain's going this way and you stain it, everything looks good except for this top and the bottom where it's against the grain. So this is all black and dark, and then it looks real nice all the way around. Well, the shellac tones that way down, and that is, the pre-stain sealers do that, but I just like the shellac because once you sand it, it's nice and smooth. Put the finish on, and you're not sanding it over and over again to try to get that roughness out across the grain. So, like I said, I really have a lot of reasons why I really like it. So. Mm-hmm. I have done both. And I've found even if you get a little bit that smudges over on the non-end grain, you can sand it and it'll sand out and you can smooth it out. And I've been able to, even when you stain it, you don't get that. Yeah, you don't get that. So I've done it both ways, and it's worked both ways. You can't be too sloppy with it, but you can sand it out and you can recover from that if you get a little bit onto the end of the grain. But it really helps out. So that's kind of a big reason why I mostly use the shellacs for that. I don't actually use it for the real reason most people use them, but I have used them to finish things because I've built so many projects. And it's really nice. It's great. It's like the oils. You can put it on knickknacks and office furniture. Don't use it in a kitchen or a bathroom where you're going to be around water and spills and things. That's not really, I wouldn't recommend that. So now we move into lacquers. And that's what I mostly spray now. Scott Wonder kind of mentored me on a lot of the finishing because he is a finishing aficionado. He's had his thing. And he warned me that I now spray, and he said, when you do that, you'll never go back to a brush. And it turns out he was right. So I pretty much spray everything, and lacquers are the main thing I spray. Also conversion varnish, which we'll get into later on. So modern lacquer, the solids are really a plant-based thing. They call it nitrocellulose, so it's something comes from trees. My understanding, back in the old days, it was a little like shellac, where it came from some kind of a bug somewhere, and I don't know what the significance of that. But I say if you go to a modern lacquer, you're going to wind up at, I'm talking about the beginning of the 20th century, it was a nitrocellulose. The lacquer thinner is a thinner for acetone to a lesser degree. Fingernail polish is basically lacquer, and that's why acetone, when you use fingernail polish remover, my wife does, it smells like I'm spraying lacquer because It's the same chemistry. I don't know the chemistry, but lacquer thinner and acetone are sort of like cousins, kissing cousins of each other. And it's available in the two forms. Again, there's the old-fashioned, the straight lacquer, and then the nitrocellulose. I don't think that straight lacquer is a catalyst involved. Now we'll get into that, there are lacquers with catalysts, but the solvent can reactivate the finish. I'm always picking the wrong button. Okay, so nitrocellulose lacquer. The advantage is it's a really hard finish. Great for office furniture, is very fast drying time, which is great. In a day you can get 3 or 4 coats on there and it just comes out beautifully. But the finish is really hard. And the problem is the expansion and contraction of wood, which you're going to get, can cause it to crack. And you can see all that. You can see that in antique furniture. You go look at antique furniture, it's got all these little cracks here and there. That's because it's maybe been stored in a shed or something, but when the wood is moved enough to cause it to crack. And because it's hard, it doesn't expand and contract with the wood. But you can fix it and recover it. If you had an antique piece and you broke all the rules, I don't think you're supposed to finish antique furniture, but if you wanted to, you can just use lacquer thinner to reactivate it, rub it down, remove a lot of it, and then respray it. And it's super easy to rework and remove. It does yellow over time, the old-fashioned lacquers do. Okay. So now they have, I'm going the wrong way again. The buttons are backwards. All right. The really modern, so I'm going to say later on into the second half of the 20th century, they are catalyzed products. They're an alkali or acrylic modified lacquer, so they've actually added some chemistry into it. And as I said, I don't know what it is they do, but it retains the surface hardness of lacquer, which is the beautiful thing. It is fast drying, but the cured product is a bit more flexible, and I guess it's this alkali or whatever that they add. So the chances of it cracking, it's a little more forgiving. So it's not going to have that cracking issue because it can expand and contract. And when I pour the lacquers into my spray gun and all that, I have a little funnel that I pour it in there. And after it dries, I break it off because it's a plastic and I can reuse it for different colored, if I have pigmented lacquers. But you can take it and bend it, and you can bend it pretty far before it cracks, and you get under there and pull the lacquer off of that plastic. But it's surprisingly flexible for lacquer, so that really does work. But it does stand up to more cleaners, and there are lacquers now that are good for kitchen and bath use, which was a no-no in the old-fashioned lacquers. So you get exposed to water and things like that repeatedly. It's not probably, it depends on the grade of the lacquer. It's probably maybe equivalent to polyurethane, but polyurethane is really a very effective finish for using in water conditions. But it doesn't yellow over time. It does have a limited pot life. So, for example, the straight lacquers have a pretty long life, but these are catalyzed, and they have about an 18-month pot life. Now, I'll get in and talk about how you can check to see if it's run its course or not. But once you catalyze it, the catalyst will start to run its course. Same thing happens with polyurethane. If you have a can of polyurethane, it's been sitting there forever, and maybe it skins over, and you pull the skin off, and it's still liquid, but then you put it on there, and it takes 6 days for it to dry. That's because the catalyst has pretty much run its course, and you're right at the edge of, you probably shouldn't be using it. But I have something here, we'll talk about that, because if you pull something out there, should I throw it away or should I keep it? But anyway, I really haven't any problem. The products I use is ML Campbell out of Ontario, Canada, and they say 18 months, but I've had some that's 2 years old and it's been fine. I run my little test, and if it's good, I can still use it. The fast drying time really requires spray equipment or aerosol cans. So lacquers, you're going to have to probably spray. And the reason why is if you have a big project and you try to brush it, by the time you get this far down, this is dried already, and it just starts globbing into the brush, and the drying time is just too fast. So it's just, so the only really way you can use a lacquer is to spray it. But they do sell it in cans, and that's sprayed with actually spray lacquer. There are some brush-on products. Somebody here in the guild told me that they actually sell a brush-on lacquer, and it comes in a little quart can. So I've never used it, but I guess they put something called a retarder in there. And I use the retarders. If you're spraying, and I spray outside, I can't spray in my shop. So if it's a really hot day, it's 85, 90 degrees, then you want to slow down the speed, because if you're spraying a large thing and you're spraying, you go all the way down. By the time you're here, this has already started to dry because it's so hot. So if you mix a retarder in there, that's basically looking at, it's like a lacquer thinner that takes longer to evaporate. So by the time you get down here and you start going back, or you start over there and you're going down right next to it, if it dries, you'll be going down and you'll have these streaks down your board, because this will have dried, and then the overspray from the previous run will get on that's partially dried, and you'll have a dull, shiny, and there'll be these stripes all the way down. So the retarder slows it down, and if you had enough, you can thin it. Scott Wonder said you just can't thin anything enough. You can't thin something too much. And it's kind of true, where you really want it nice and thin, because it takes a while for that lacquer or the retarder to evaporate. So it gives the lacquer a chance to settle out and get a chance to level out. So if you're spraying, this isn't really skinned over yet when you get to the end, and you start over here and you spray again, the overspray will hit it, but it the surface hasn't dried enough, so will level into it, so you'll get a really nice, even, smooth top. So if you're spraying lacquers and it's pretty hot, you would probably want to use a retarder. But on a day like today, it's 50. I could probably spray when it's -5 degrees, but my hands don't work so good when it gets that cold. So my limit's about 45 degrees. But if you get down to 45 to maybe 62, 63 degrees, you probably just use regular lacquer thinner. But if you get over to 65, then I would recommend using retarder, especially if you have a large project. If it's a little project, not a problem. But the retarder really helps you out when it gets hot, because it gets to the point where it dries just too fast and you don't get a nice, even finish. Okay, so this is the fourth category, is varnishes and polymers. And they do have a catalyst. The solids are based on the catalyst the catalyst is a chemical that causes the molecules to combine. Like the catalytic converter in a car. It has to heat up. It takes oxygen and takes the carbon monoxide and creates carbon dioxide by sitting on the surface of the platinum. Well, this is kind of like that, where it uses a catalyst to cause the chemical reaction to occur to cure the product. It's called cross-linking chemistry, where the molecules cross-link. It makes a really strong, durable, great bond. So it's the king of the hill in terms of durability and strength are the polymers. Once cured, though, the solvent can't dissolve the finish, because it's cured, it's cross-linked, and the solvent can go on there, and it will not break down the crystal. It'll just remain in place. Examples are they're for interior use. There's polyurethane and there's conversion varnish. Polyurethane is very durable. I use conversion varnish on some of the cabinets, like sink cabinets and so on, because you're going to put your chemicals in there, and you're going to have cleaners and Windex and all that stuff. And in life, it's going to spill. It's going to get on that finish. And I found the polyurethane is pretty durable, but this stuff is like Superman. I had a case where I had a board that I stained the wrong color, and I put the conversion varnish on there. And turns out when I took it in to the customer, and I had to build a cabinet before that, I didn't pay attention to the color. So the color was wrong. I thought, well, that's fine. I'll just put some stripper, went back to the shop, put some paint stripper on it. We'll strip it off, and then we'll sand it down and get the color. So I put the paint stripper on there, and it not only didn't remove the conversion, not the polyurethane, but the conversion varnish. It not only didn't remove it, it didn't even affect the sheen of the finish. It just wiped off, and it's like it wasn't even there. So normally, paint's all blistered, and you just take a putty knife and not that stuff. So what I had to do is I had to run it through the drum sander and just physically sand it off. That's the only way I could get that stuff off. It will scratch, it's a finish, but the only way to get it off of there is either to mechanically remove it or take high-strength sulfuric acid will eat through it. So I tell my customers, don't work on your car battery on my cabinets because it will eat through the conversion, but anything else is fine. So the stuff is it's unbelievable. But again, it's that bonding. And when I spray the cabinets, and if I get some overspray, so if I'm spraying a face frame and all, it's a color, and it's usually what I call Magnamax, which is the modified alkali lacquer. So I can spray that, and then if I get overspray in the cabinet, I'll take the lacquer thinner and very carefully don't get it on the lacquer with the alkali, the modern lacquer, but I can put on the conversion varnish, and I'll just wipe it down, and it'll just it'll totally eat away the lacquer. It'll just totally come out clean, and then the conversion varnish is under it. It's just like I didn't do anything to it. So the stuff is just unbelievable in terms of chemical strength. So then they're really, what I found is polymers, they're really good for indoor use. They have ones they claim are outdoor use. I've tried the outdoor polyurethane. They crack and they got to be finished every year. I haven't found a clear finish that can handle weather. I mean, latex paints, yes, but clear finishes, maybe somebody can find one. The only other ones I can think of might be the Epithane, which is a marine finish. But I can't get any of them to work. Even the conversion varnish, it's just the wood expands and contracts. It cracks, and then you have to scrape it and then refinish it, and then the next year it cracks again. So if anybody comes up with a brilliant idea to solve that problem, I don't know. But the latex paints are the only ones that I know of that can really handle from year to year. So when I have to do some Adirondack chairs, I'll spray them with latex paint. So again, I don't ever use a brush anymore, I just spray. But they are good for exterior use. It's some kind of an ester glycol alcohol of some kind that is the catalyst that, I guess the solvent that gets the catalyst to combine, because it is latex paints are polymers even though they're waterborne. So there are waterborne finishes that are polymers. The reason why it's waterborne is they use some kind of an alcohol, some cousin of it, some ester glycol or something. And also, when I talk about the shellac, where I have it down to a 3/4 pound cut, you can clean your brushes with soap and water because there's so much alcohol in it. You just clean them up, and they're great. If they are a little stiff, just take a little denatured alcohol and dab the brush in there, and you've reactivated it. So you can actually clean your brushes from shellac if you have enough of the alcohol in it. It'll clean right up. So the waterborne polyurethane, again, haven't had luck with that. Exterior, the marine varnishes, the Epiphanes, those are the only ones. I have used those, and those do seem to hold up. Built a little model of course it's not outside all the time, but those seem to be the only ones that can handle it, and they do actually need to be maintained also. Pre and post catalyzed finishes, there are shelf life limitations. The shelf life varies with the product. So if you have a nitrocellulose plain old, of course it's not a catalyst, but it'll last for several years. The conversion varnish, if you don't add the catalyst, its shelf life is years, 3-4 years, no problem. Once you catalyze it, that's a whole different story. They have the pre-catalyzed finishes, which I use for the lacquers, and those are about 18 months once they're catalyzed. but I can actually pinch a little more out of it, and I'll explain how you do that. Again, polyurethane and some of the lacquers are 18 months to a few years. Post-catalyze, once you catalyze a conversion varnish or any post-catalyzed product, the pot life, the time starts ticking away. So you put the catalyst in, you mix it all up, and then it's starting to cure immediately. And if you put it in a pot and you, for example, the conversion varnish I use is a 12-hour time clock. They also sell a polyurethane, it's only 3 or 4 hours. I don't know why you'd even use it, because you know, you're going to want to put a coat in. The polyurethane takes 3 or 4 hours to dry to begin with, so you're going to clean your gun every time you... Anyway, to me it's not practical. But the post-catalyzed, 12 hours you get with the conversion varnish, which is great. But once you've catalyzed it, you can't put it back in the can. You have to throw it away. Because when it sits in the can and you keep it closed and it runs the course, the 12-hour course, and you wasn't exposed to the air, it will never cure. It'll remain sticky and a liquid forever. So you have to, so once you spray it and it cures and it hardens, everything's wonderful. But the stuff that's still in the can, you have to throw it away. So when you're making a project, you have to estimate how much you're going to have and what you're going to have left over. So there's going to be some waste. So you got to have an empty can to throw that in, and then take it to the recycle, because it's unusable after it's run its course.
On that catalyzed conversion, for the
Conversion varnish, yeah.
is that hard to clean your gun?
Nope, it's very easy. No different than lacquer. As long as it hasn't hardened, as long as it hasn't cured, it's no different than cleaning lacquer or anything else. It cleans up beautifully. And the other thing about conversion varnish is, for all the disadvantages, the stuff I've found is it's the most forgiving finish I've ever used, because it takes about 45 minutes for it to dry instead of the 30. So you can spray a large thing and you won't have to deal with doing retarder. And when I spray it, because it levels itself, it's like it knows what you want it to do, and it does it. So it is the most forgiving finish I've ever used. So it is a huge advantage, plus the fact that it's chemically impervious to almost everything. But then you have the disadvantage of the catalyzation, and you have to mix it. It's a 10-to-1 ratio. And then once you've catalyzed it, you've got to use it. And if you don't, you throw it away. So, but if you actually accidentally left it in your gun and it didn't cure, you can clean it with lacquer thinner, as long as it didn't cure. Now when it cures, then you're going to have to physically somehow get it out of the gun. But of course, as you know, in a spray gun, you got the can and you got the nozzle, so that's completely sealed. So if it did run its course, you probably could recover. I never chance it, but...
Do you use an extender then at all?
Extender?
Yes, do it having high, say if your temperatures are high.
I have, if it gets pretty high, I do that. Yeah, it's called a retarder. It slows down the drying process. But because it's about 45 minutes, mostly if it gets into the 70s, you're pretty much good with using regular. I always thin a little bit, because it levels out much nicer if you thin it. So so I still do when it gets up into the 70s, but it's a very forgiving finish. So.
Where do you have to take it to get it recycled?
Take it to the hazardous waste. Oh, where do you take it to get it recycled? I take it down to the hazardous waste recycle down in, I have to go down where I get the finishes and so on. I go down into the south area. It's HHS is I think what they call it. It's Home Hazardous Waste Collection, and it's down off of near Green Park Road down. It's down south city. So actually South County, but it's way down there. So I just get a bunch, and then I take my motor oil and everything else along with it. So.
Don, what is the single best finish to avoid UV light, to block it?
Repeat the question.
What is the single best finish to avoid UV light? I don't actually know the answer to that question. I really don't know. There are ones that they claim to have that inhibit UV light,
Yes.
but I don't know which ones those are. So
I use some reddish woods. They always, UV light will turn them black. And
Yeah, yeah.
I even tell people, if you want one of these, stick it in your purse or your desk drawer.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even a wood dealer who sold me said, if you ever find out what does it, let me know. I
Mhm.
thought it was spar varnish.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, I'm not aware of that, because most of what I've been doing so far, I've mostly been selling, it's been painted, I use something called Magnamax, which is an M.L. Campbell product, and everything is sprayed, you can pigment, it's a lacquer that you can pigment.
Yeah.
And now these are commercial things, you can't buy these, you can't buy them at Home Depot and stuff.
Okay.
So, but they do sell a paintable lacquer, and somebody in the guild said you can actually, you can brush it, but you can also thin it and spray it too. So you can use it, but it will be a clear lacquer.
And what's it saying?
It's a lacquer. I don't know if it's if Minwax makes it, but I've seen on the shelf it comes in little quart cans. You can probably get the gallon ones, but yeah, I like I just like them because it dries so fast. I can spray it and wait a half an hour or so. I can sand it. It's not cured all the way through, but you can sand it and get another coat and build it up. Now, the thing about all that is don't let it fool you, because if you spray like a door and you want to spray both sides, so you spray it and you let it run and it feels perfectly dry, and you flip it over and you spray it and set it down over here, it's not cured all the way down to the wood. So it's going to sit there, and then if you have it on something, it's going to eat into it and it's going to leave a mark right across where it was sitting on there. So it's happened to me so many times. I finally got the message, and I wait till the next day to let it fully cure down to the wood, and then you spray the other side. You can flip it over and it'll be fine.
Well,
But
that's what I do. When I use the lacquer, I paint it on something rotating on a lathe. When I
Okay.
finish 6 or 7 or 8 coats, I give it 24 hours.
Yes, because if you, it's like, I've gotten burned by that so many times. I finally, you got to force yourself, because if it's dry, you can set it down. No, it's not. It's not cured down to the wood, and you'll pay a penalty for that. So, yeah. So that's the thing. And the other thing about, like I said, about the lacquers is they dry so fast. It's hard to, if you have a sizable project, you can't really paint it with a brush because it'll dry too fast. So that's the only thing about lacquers.
So I was going to say on the UV, as a car guy, I've always been told that car wax is supposed to block UV and protect your paint. Car wax, absolutely.
Really?
The wax that I use on my car
Really?
says right there on the label that you can use it for wood projects. So maybe.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, yeah, on top
Yeah.
of everything.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
put the car wax. That might be a UV blocking clear finish. Wouldn't be nearly as durable as a polymer, but
Well, so you're kind of a car guy, so let me ask you this question. I've heard people say that automotive finishes are lacquers. Is that true?
the clear coat on top of the car paint might be, but you're generally going to have a wax coat on top of that too.
Okay, I was wondering, because I can't imagine a lacquer holding up like old days. Yeah.
Audience member was saying it might be, it's probably acrylic these days, not
Yeah.
lacquer anymore.
I was going to say, because I could never see it, because I could never see lacquer surviving in that environment. They crack, and yes, they do. So that's right. Let me see. So Furnishes and Polymers, again, I've only found them good for indoor use. I think I've already gone through this. So yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I want to go this way, but it goes that way. So I'll keep doing it wrong, so we'll have to get used to it. Okay, so here's my little trick that I wanted to throw out there. How to store and check polymers for shelf life. So I'll run this test to see if the catalyst has run its course or not. And it works for polyurethane, any kind of polymer. So you thoroughly mix the contents of the can. So of course, if it's skimmed over, you just mix it really well and to thin it a little if you want to thin it out so it's brushable or sprayable. So you add the solvent, you mix it again and get the consistency you want. Then apply the finish to a piece of scrap. And check to see if the finish cures the same time it does for a fresh finish. Maybe a little longer, but not a whole lot longer. And if it actually does cure and harden, you're good to go. But if not, put it in the recycle and get rid of it because you'll ruin your project. And so that's the kind of test that I do, because like I said, the outfit that I buy it from, they say 18 months. Well, I've used their lacquers after 2 years, and it works just fine. But maybe 3 or 4 years, it's probably going to be an issue. So you put that on there, put it on there and see if it dries in the normal time, and you're good to go. So we've been getting questions. Any other questions? Yes.
When you're spraying lacquer, do you put down a seal coat before that?
No, I actually put other than I like the shellac trick, but what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. So do you put down a coat underneath the lacquer? Do you put a primer coat underneath it? Okay. And as I was saying, I like to do the shellac trick and then the stain, but even if I didn't, I would actually just go ahead and just put 1 coat of lacquer on there. Now, if I didn't have the shellac, you just have to sand the nubs down and just build up your coats. The other thing that's really nice about lacquers and shellacs and ones that can be solvent-based is they have what's called build-in. So when you put the finish down and you put another coat on there, it'll actually dissolve into it. So it'll wind up being a homogeneous layer of finish because it'll dissolve into it. Polymers are not like that. They cross-link, and once they bind, you can't. When you put the next layer on, it's not going to dissolve into the previous layer. So you have to sand it so that it'll grip on the previous layer. Whereas on lacquers and shellacs, you can get away without sanding. Now the manufacturer will all say you must sand, but actually if it has built-in, you can get away with it and just spray right on top of it. I always wind up sanding because there's always going to be that little nib in there that you want to get out of there before you put the last coat. And as you coat it in there, you get less nibs as you go until the very end. Then you got to get some 800 sandpaper or something, to get those out. But so that's basically what I do.
What do you use for outdoor furniture?
Latex paint. Or you can use either white oak or inlaid patina, or you can use cypress. Cypress is it's like pine and it's light and everything, but it lasts forever outside. I think it's some kind of a swamp wood, or they grew up in the swamp or something, but it lasts as long as oak. So, and you just let it patina. So it's either latex or you let it patina, or every year you wind up scraping it, and it gets uglier and uglier every year because it cracks, and you finally throw it away after 5 years because it looks terrible. So, yeah. Bill.
Is there a book that you recommend on finishing?
No, I'm just giving you my experience of what I've learned in the past. So there are books out there, and so I'm not aware. Maybe our librarian might be able to find us one if we have a finished book.
There is a book in the library that I checked out just before the pandemic and had for like 18 months. And it really is good. I wish I wrote down the author, but somebody once I can look through. And the reason I liked it is it really told you the best application or the best finish to use for different applications.
Right.
And it was, the oil lacquer combinations I like. I had built a library ladder out of walnut, and I used that finish, and I really liked it. But there was a really good book back there. There's probably more than one back there. So
yeah, it's there's all kinds of books on it. I haven't used any of the mixed stuff, but I did have, if you want to look at it, because the pictures were weren't that good. This is a piece of hard maple, and I did 1/2 shellac and 1/2 just hard maple. Then I sprayed it with some lacquer out of a can. But it shows you the difference in the coloration here. So if you're making your raised panel door, you don't get this dark color versus light. Now, of course, I picked a piece of hard maple that usually never cooperates, is always difficult to work with, and this piece happened to be very cooperative, so the difference isn't as great as I thought it was going to be, because I thought, oh, I'll get this piece of hard maple, I'm going to really show how bad it can be. Well, it wasn't as bad as I thought. So anyway, you can still look at it and see the difference and multiply that times 10, and that's what you normally get with maple and cherry. And then this is a piece of butternut. I made a table out of butternut. It's really a pretty wood. And this half is shellac and this half is not, so the dark part is the non-shellac, and that is with the shellac. But if you look at the dark wood, the darker the wood, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So you probably get away with not having to do the shellac. Although I would probably do it because I want to get rid of the nubs and it help get you spraying and finishing faster.
Don, what sprayer do you have?
I have an Apollo sprayer. I range from the Wagner ones you can get at Home Depot that are plastic, and I spray. And then I actually have 6 guns. I have a conventional one, which I used like 3 times. And then I have all the rest are HVLP, high volume, low pressure. And so the cheaper ones, I have 2 ones that I have from Wagner, and I can spray those. I just spray if I'm doing the house project or something, I'll spray those. Then I have an inexpensive $75 gun. It's an Apollo, but it's a plastic. It's all plastic except for the business end with the nozzle and all that is metal. Whereas the Wagner one, it's all nylon and plastic. And I still use that for lacquers. I mean for latex paints. And then I move step up to the Cadillac, and that is a kind of the same kind of one they use in the auto body shops, basically. And that's several hundreds of dollars for that. And then I have the Rolls-Royce Bentley, and that one is the king one. It'll spray gravity feed, pressure feed, and I use it with a pressure pot. So if I'm spraying a kitchen and I've got 12 cabinets to spray, I have a pressure pot and I dump a half a gallon in there, and then I can spray much longer than the one with the quart size. Plus, the advantage of the pressure pot is if I'm spraying a face frame and I want to get the under part, I can just flip it up there and go like this. With the quart one, you can't do that because you flipped it over. But with the pressure pot, it's here. I hook it on my belt and I'm walking around with my finish here, and I just can spray whichever way I want. And it's another Apollo one. It's called the Atomizer. That one's they're more expensive. But if you're getting serious about spraying and you really Scott Wonder really recommended, if you're going to do it, pay the money to get a good sprayer. If you're really serious, you can get pretty decent results from the Harbor Freight. And if you're just doing a few little projects, that's fine. But if you're running a business or you're really going to get serious about doing a whole kitchen, I get a good one. I think, is it Eastman? I think they make a nice gun. So, but you look at the gun, it's all aluminum and stainless steel. That's what you want to get.
So these are all hooked to a compressor?
They're hooked to a turbine. Okay. Yeah, they have conversion guns. The fancy one that I got that does everything, it has a regulator, so I could actually run it on a compressor. But you got to have like a 20-gallon tank on the compressor because you're really putting out lots of volume. So you're probably better off getting a turbine. Mine's a 4-stage. There's a 3, 4, and 5-stage. It just gives you more pressure. But it's just, the main thing is you're putting a lot of air out. And so they're nice guns. And then the next step up is the airless ones. But those are really, I wouldn't probably, for anything we do, I wouldn't probably use that. I had a Rhino Shield come out and spray our house, and they use that because the stuff is like clay, and they have to spray it at 3,000 pounds of pressure. And so, but for what we do, I would probably go with the HVLP. All the auto body shops, they use the same guns that I use. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can get at the auto parts store that are great for finishing. So, So anyway. Who? Yeah.
There's a lot of new waterbornes that are out, and there's a company in New Jersey called Target Coatings.
Yes, I've heard of
And
them.
I just tried, they've actually got a waterborne shellac. And, well, the sample I did, it worked beautifully. I put it
like
on
it?
walnut,
Yeah.
it's an amber shellac, and it popped it, made it look really, really good. And I've got a waterborne lacquer that I'm gonna use on top of it. And
Yeah, yeah.
they advertise that their lacquer, if you get your coatings on within a certain period of time, even the waterborne will burn in just like the old nitrocellulose.
Yes, I have heard that they've actually figured that out. And Target's the only one that, I've heard of that they actually have built-in for a waterborne lacquer, which is chemically amazing to me. But yeah, that would be really neat if you have good results. The thing about, I've had okay, I've said I've always had good experiences. I've had bad experiences, and it's not the Target finishes, but with the polyurethanes that are the waterborne, they just, when you put it on a wood and you spend all this time getting a beautiful piece of wood, and then it just dulls it out, and it's sort of a cloudy color, and it doesn't bring out the grain. It doesn't look three-dimensional. And so I guess I got burned by that. So I'm. And had the same experience? Yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of Target, and that I should probably look into that. Well, but you did shellac, but you also said you did lacquer too, right? Because I've heard they have a lacquer that has built-in that's waterborne. I just don't know what the quality of in terms of how deep it looks. I mean, sure, the finish is fine, but I want to bring out, you spend some money and you got a beautiful piece of wood, you want it to, scream out, hey, I'm gorgeous, look at me. And would you? Yes, because that'd be a nice data point, because I shied away from it because I had such bad experiences with waterborne finishes in terms of how cloudy it is. The finish is great, but it just doesn't pop the wood. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that'd be something to think about. Is it, do you have to mix the catalyst, or is it all pre-catalyzed? Okay, okay. So it is a post-catalyzed in certain cases.
Yeah, if you want to have a little more durable.
Okay, okay.
They're very good on their website. You can send in a question to them, and it gets back to you right away. He'll either call you or he'll send you back a response on things.
Do they have a local place where you can order it and then get it mixed? Okay,
But if
okay.
you get on their email list,
Mhm.
then you'll get coupons all the time. Every month they're knocking like 20 or 25% off.
Okay, yeah.
So it's.
Yeah, I've heard of that, and I've heard that they have a waterborne lacquer that has built-in, which blows my mind. So that would be I immediately have a question is, could you put in 2 or 3 coats and then catalyze the last one to give you the durability, but you had the built-in on the other ones?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't ask them that, but.
Yeah, that'd be
that
interesting,
would be
yeah.
a question to ask.
Huh, all right, yeah, I've heard of them, but I've never used it, so.
What's the name of the company again?
Target Coatings.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you have preferences to finish depending on what the usage is going to be.
Right.
Do you have any preferences for finish depending on what the wood is?
Actually, I don't. I have not really had any problems that are based on the wood. The only areas where I have problems with the wood is staining. Certain woods with certain grains don't stain well. But I've never really had a problem with any finish associated with a particular wood. You just got to be dried, and you can't have lots of oils in the wood. And if you do have oils in the wood, then you would use an oil. But usually the woods I use mostly domestic wood, so they don't have a lot of issues with that other than, of course, pine. I don't really use pine, but I'll use poplar instead. So I haven't had problems with oily woods, but if you do have a wood that has a reputation for being oily, then yes, you'd have to use an oil of some kind.
When you say dry, how dry?
I prefer 8% or less, so it has to be kiln dry. Here, if you let it sit out, like I've let it sit out, you can get down to 13% in Missouri. Now, if you're in Arizona, you probably get it down to 3%, I don't know. But that's what you can kind of get, and then you bring it in the shop, you can bump it down. I like to get it, depending on how desperate I am, I like to get it down 10% or lower, because then it doesn't move when you work with it. So, because if you plane it, and it's above that, you'll get it, join it and plane it, get it all perfect, and come in the next day and it's, it's done that little number. So you you want to have it pretty dry so it'll stay stable. So.
Yeah, one of the better known authors for books on finishing is Jeff Jewett.
Okay.
Lacquer's the other one. And Jeff Jewett owns Target Coatings.
Oh, he does?
Can you repeat that?
He owns what?
Target Coatings.
He also owns Trent and
He did, yeah.
he just vetted it.
Wow. I guess he's a superstar in the finishing world.
He came here and gave us a presentation about 10 years ago.
Really?
12 years ago.
Why isn't he here instead of me? I was cheaper, that's right. I was a whole lot cheaper. You get what you pay for. Oh. Okay. Here's our pieces of wood.
That's all right. All right, I think that's going to call it a wrap, other than to say, hopefully, I want to say thanks to those that brought in toys today. A total of 462 tonight was collected. And and next month, we hope to have a nice sample of most of the Christmas toys that have been assembled, because we're going to be donating them just another few days after our meeting. So, be safe, be smart, and we'll see you next month. Thank you, everyone.